Welcome back, artists. We have our little collection of natural objects here. We've got a flower, some little leaves of different types. Here's a few more leaves. Also a penny. And I also got this little nut, a couple other little things that are not natural materials, just to try them out. And with our dough, or I mean air dry clay, we actually added food coloring because I know some of you asked me about that, so I figured I might as well go ahead and do it too. The first thing that you're going to do, which is actually what Greta's working on right now, is taking all of, well, I actually said this before. You can make this in two different ways. You can either put it flat down to make a pressing into the actual clay itself, or you can find a bowl or another kind of container to press it into, which is what we're trying to do here. So we're going to do a little bit of both so you can see both ways. So we're going to finish setting this up and then we'll be right back. Alright, so here are my objects arranged in the bowl, and then I've got a few more to show you the other technique. So I'm going to go ahead and do both. The first one that I'm going to do is this one. So you want to make sure that if you're doing one like this, that you're putting the clay over top of your objects and on the inside of whatever container you're using. And the reason that you want to do the inside is because the air dry clay will shrink. So if you try to put it on the outside of that container, it will actually crack. It has a tendency to crack because it will shrink and it won't fit around it anymore. The thing about putting it on the inside is once it shrinks, it won't have anything to kind of fight against. Okay, I don't know if hopefully that makes sense to you. So I'm going to go ahead with my air dry clay and I'm going to press it into on top of these different objects. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and you'll see the next part. Okay, so I've flattened this out and I've put it inside of my bowl, and it's kind of handy, you can see everything. The next part that you're going to do is press in, and you're going to keep pressing until you get a really even layer on the inside. And if you have a little bit that comes off the side like this, you can cut it. The more you press in, the better your imprints on the outside of your bowl will be. So the idea is to get all of these objects to press into the clay. So you really want to press in pretty hard and consistently and all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and we'll be back. So here, I just wanted to show you this side of the container because now you can really see that the clay is squished in and around all of those different objects. And the idea is to let this dry until it's pretty dry that all of these things are going to make that impression, and then you can remove them after it dries. The next thing that I'm going to do is pull off the extra of this. I'm just going to trim it using some scissors, but you could also just pull some of it off using your hands, but the scissors will make it look a little bit neater, so I'm going to head and do that. Alright, so here is my finished first piece, which I'm just going to let that dry like I said, and once it's dry it will pop out of this really easily because like I said the clay itself will get smaller, so it should be very easy to take out of the bowl. For drying it, you want to make sure that you're putting it into a really dry place. Now if it's raining out, it's important to keep it in some kind of sunlight or near a heater. So if you have radiators, you can put them near the radiators. If you have another spot in your house that is really warm because of the sun coming in, that could work. The other option that you have, if it's really not a dry day, is to put it into a gas oven but without any heat on, because the gas inside of the gas oven, there's always a little flame in there and that will actually dry it out too. So that's your third option, but don't put the heat on because the heat would actually destroy your, well, it wouldn't work. I'll just say that. It just wouldn't work, so don't try that. Alright, so that's our first step, and now I'm going to show you the other version. Okay, so since I'm doing the second step, I just peeled everything off of my wet air dry clay, so you can see what was going to happen when it actually dries. It's pretty cool to see all of those imprinted things. So just to show you that, and now I'm going to go ahead and squish this back down to make the platter type of imprinted clay. Yeah, all right. So for this part, you're going to need a rolling pin. You're going to need your objects. Oh, and I also wanted to just say that even though this has been colored, you didn't have to color this. You can paint it later. So you can do color with food coloring like I did here, or you can just paint it after everything else is done. All right, we're going to go ahead to the next part. Alrighty, so for this tape, you're going to take your clay now and you're going to press it down a bit more just to get it semi-flat, and then you're going to take a rolling pin and we're going to roll it a little bit more just to get it. Sorry, this is not ideal for rolling pins. And then once you've got it a bit more flat, you're going to take your objects and arrange them in the spots that you want them on your flat clay, which will become a sort of a platter or a emblem. I don't know what else to call it. An emblem, something like that. So yeah, so you're taking your objects, you're going to squish this down a bit more, take your objects, put them on there, and then I'll show you the last part. Alright, so here I have my objects arranged on my clay, and I'm going to be taking my rolling pin and just rolling over those objects. And the other thing that I noticed is, so I have this object, and I just wanted to make a point of this, that if you have an object that's much thicker than the other ones for this technique, you'll have some problems getting that to be flat with everything else in there. So if you do want to have an object like this, you can press it in yourself just like that, okay, because it's also a solid. The thing about the natural materials is that pressing them in, it's hard to do just by hand, so that's why I recommend using the rolling pin. So once you've got everything on here, you're going to take the rolling pin, roll it a few times, and then you can actually remove your objects after this step if you want to, or you can leave them on. It doesn't really matter. Either way, it will dry, and then you'll have the imprint of them. Okay, so I just want to show you, I pressed them in a little bit more with my rolling pin, and you can tell that they're kind of more embedded in there now, which is why you can, if they're loose, peel them up and you'll see that really cool impression. But you can also, if they're really pressed in well like this, you might want to leave them until everything dries and then take them out a little bit later. And the neat thing about painting after you've done this process is that you'll be able to see all those details and kind of respond to them with the paint. So that's our impressions printing with objects project with our air dry homemade clay, which I still haven't figured out the right name for. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and I am looking forward to seeing what you've come up with for this. I am going to have the one last step for this project of painting it for next week. Okay, everyone, take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.